Welcome in, everyone, to today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. So today we are tackling something that governs, almost every waking hour of our lives,
Right.
yet it operates almost entirely in our blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
We are dissecting the psychological illusions of money.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at how we perceive our possessions, how we evaluate the whole concept of wealth, and crucially, how we fundamentally misjudge the people who actually hold those things.
Which is something we all do, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Every single one of us.
Yeah.
So for you listening, we're working from two central frameworks today. These are concepts explored in pieces titled Man in the Car Paradox and Wealth is What You Don't See.
Two really fascinating sources.
They really are. And I want to be clear right out of the gate. The mission here isn't to give you like a lecture on budgeting.
Oh, no, not at all.
Or asset allocation or anything like that. You already know the math. What we want to do is fundamentally rewire how you view success and the visual cues of consumption.
Because that's the real trap.
Exactly. We are aiming to equip you with the mental models you need to pursue actual financial freedom, rather than getting trapped in this exhausting cycle of just chasing the appearance of it.
Yeah, because it's the behavioral economics that truly trip people up. It is not the arithmetic.
Right.
I mean, the math of personal finance is remarkably straightforward. Earn more than you spend. Invest the difference. But these psychological drivers,
That's the messy part.
it's incredibly messy. The invisible social scripts dictating why we buy a specific brand or, why society reacts to a certain zip code. That is deeply ingrained. It's highly emotional and often entirely irrational territory.
Totally irrational.
So today, we're looking past the dollars and cents to uncover the behavioral machinery that makes incredibly smart people make completely irrational decisions.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I want to start with the man-in-the-car paradox.
Perfect starting point.
Because the premise begins with a scenario that almost everyone has experienced or at least witnessed. The backdrop is a hotel valet stand.
Right, the author's backstory.
Yeah, the author worked as a valet, and they had the keys to what they described as the aristocratic fleet. We're talking Ferraris.
Lamborghinis.
Rolls-Royces, the absolute apex of luxury engineering. Now, the initial assumption the valet had, and honestly, the assumption I think most of us carry, is that driving one of these cars sends an undeniable signal to the world.
A very loud signal.
Right. It's supposed to broadcast that you've made it. You are smart, you're wealthy, you have impeccable taste, and most importantly, you are important.
Yeah, and that is the intended utility of the purchase, right?
Exactly.
Beyond just getting from point A to point B, a $300,000 car is essentially a communication device.
That's a great way to put it, a communication device.
The buyer assumes the car acts as a direct bridge between their success and the observer's admiration. But the paradox emerges when we look at the actual transaction of attention.
Which completely blew my mind when I read this.
The valet realizes that while holding the keys and standing next to these magnificent machines, they rarely, if ever, actually looked at the driver.
Never looked at the driver.
The human being behind the wheel was essentially a ghost.
So the driver thinks they're the absolute star of the show.
Right.
But to the audience, they're just an extra on the set.
What's fascinating here is the subconscious psychology of the observer. When we see someone driving a spectacularly nice car, the thought process almost never goes, wow, the person driving that car is so cool, I really admire them.
Never.
Instead, the observer's thought process immediately turns inward. The observer projects themselves into the scenario.
They put themselves in the driver's seat.
Exactly. They think, if I had that car, people would think, I am cool. We don't admire the owner. We use the owner's wealth merely as a benchmark for our own desire to be admired.
I want to push back on that slightly, though, because surely there is some level of admiration happening.
Okay, let's hear it.
Like, if I see someone pull up in a bespoke Rolls-Royce, part of me is definitely thinking, well, that person must have built an incredible business, or they must be a genius in their field. Isn't there an element of genuine respect for the achievement that the car represents?
I mean, there might be a fleeting acknowledgement of competence, sure. Like a quick, oh, they must be smart.
Right.
But we have to distinguish between acknowledging a status symbol
Yeah.
and actually feeling respect for the individual.
Oh, okay. I see.
The observer might think they must be successful, but the emotional resonance, the actual feeling of admiration, bypasses the driver entirely. The car isn't functioning as a pedestal, elevating the driver's character in the eyes of the public.
It's functioning as a mirror.
Yes, It's a mirror. The observer looks at the Ferrari and sees their own ego, their own aspirations, and their own desire for social validation reflected back at them. The driver is just the fleshy mechanism required to move the mirror around town.
Wow, that is a remarkably lonely reality when you phrase it that way.
It really is.
Just picture the mechanics of that interaction. You have the valet, completely mesmerized, gawking at this gleaming machine pulling up.
Jaw on the floor.
Yeah. And in their mind, they are gripping that leather steering wheel. They're feeling the engine rumble. Meanwhile, the actual driver sees the valet staring, and the driver mistakenly assumes that the gawking is directed at them.
They think, this valet respects me.
This valet thinks I'm important. It is a complete failure of mutual understanding.
It's a tragic disconnect. The driver has likely traded a staggering amount of capital or taken on a massive liability for this depreciating asset. And they did it primarily for a specific return on investment. Social admiration.
But the market of public opinion isn't paying out.
Not at all. The strangers they are trying to impress aren't giving the driver a fraction of a moment's thought. The intended signal completely fails to reach the receiver in the way it was broadcast.
And what we have to realize is that this delusion doesn't stop at the valet stand.
Oh, not even close.
Fast cars are just the most obvious example. Because according to the source material, this paradox applies flawlessly to massive real estate, to a massive diamond ring.
It's got clothes.
Yeah, to wearing a jacket with a very specific logo on the chest. Any item we purchase specifically to serve as a billboard for our own success suffers from this exact same communication breakdown.
Yep.
Which begs the question, if these items fail so spectacularly at their primary social function, what are we actually doing? We're clearly not just buying steel, glass, or cotton.
We're attempting to purchase a feeling.
Exactly. We are attempting to purchase an emotional response from our environment. Which leads perfectly into the second layer of this framework, which is the true currency of respect.
There's a poignant distillation of this idea in the text, framed as a letter to a newborn son.
I love this part.
The premise is this. The author writes, you might think you want an expensive car, a fancy watch, and a huge house, but you don't. What you want is respect and admiration from other people, and you think having expensive stuff will bring it.
And the reality check is that it almost never does, especially from the people whose respect you actually care about.
It is the ultimate mismatch between the tool and the goal.
Right.
And the goal is entirely valid, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Seeking respect and admiration is a deeply fundamental human drive. We are social creatures. We need to feel valued by our tribe to feel secure. That's just biology.
Sure.
But the tool we've been sold by modern consumer culture to achieve that goal, visible wealth, is fundamentally defective. It's like trying to drive a nail with a screwdriver. You can hit it as hard as you want, but it's the wrong instrument for the job.
But let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because it's really easy to sit back and say, oh, material things don't matter, it's all about character. That can start to sound a bit preachy, or even like a rationalization for not achieving financial success.
That's a fair point.
If someone grinds for 20 years, builds a company, and wants to buy the Porsche because they genuinely love the engineering, isn't that valid? Does buying luxury goods automatically mean you're desperately seeking validation?
No. And that is a crucial distinction. It's a caveat explicitly addressed in the framework. This is not about taking a monastic vow of poverty or claiming that wealth and luxury goods are inherently toxic.
The author even admits to liking nice cars.
Exactly. Liking nice things is perfectly fine. Appreciating craftsmanship, engineering, or aesthetics is a completely valid human experience.
Okay, so where's the line?
The framework isn't a moral judgment. It's an exercise in managing expectations. It's about being ruthlessly honest with yourself about the utility of the purchase.
A utility.
Right. If you buy the Porsche because the sound of the engine brings you personal joy on an empty canyon road, you have successfully utilized your wealth for personal satisfaction.
You got what you paid for.
But if you buy it, even subconsciously, as a transactional tool to acquire respect from your peers, you are going to be severely disappointed.
Because the expected return on investment just isn't there.
Right. You are trading hard currency for a social currency that the market refuses to pay out. If respect is your actual objective, the acquisition strategy needs to change entirely.
So this is where we turn the lens directly onto you, the listener. How often is the real price tag of a purchase not the dollar amount, but the expectation of how people will look at you differently once you own it?
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
It really is. Think about the subtle choices. The neighborhood you rent in, The brands you subtly ensure are visible on a Zoom call. We all do it.
We do.
But the ultimate takeaway from this first source is that if you want to be admired, humility, kindness, and empathy will generate a vastly higher yield than horsepower ever will.
Because empathy and kindness positively affect the observer. If you are kind to someone, you elevate them. That generates genuine admiration and respect.
It's an actual connection?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you drive a fast car past someone, you only make them wish they had a fast car. You haven't improved their condition at all. You've only triggered their own status anxiety. Character traits are the only sustainable currency of human connection.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Oh.
We've established that we can't trust the Ferrari to successfully signal that a person is actually respected or admired by society. But if we dig a layer deeper into the financial mechanics, can we even trust the Ferrari to signal that the person is actually wealthy?
And that is the transition from the social illusion to the deeply dangerous financial illusion.
That's a huge pivot.
It is. Because if the first blind spot is thinking wealth buys respect, the second, far more destructive blind spot is believing that visible spending equals actual wealth. This brings us to the second concept. Wealth is what you don't see.
To explore this, we need to look at a highly specific ecosystem mentioned in the text. Imagine Los Angeles in the mid-2000s.
Oh, man.
It's described as an environment where material appearance took precedence over almost everything else, aside from oxygen.
Right. It is the absolute epicenter of the outward projection of success.
Exactly.
It's the perfect petri dish for this behavioral study. In an environment that hypervalues aesthetics, the intuitive assumption runs completely unchecked.
The assumption that if you see it, it's real.
Yes. If you see a luxury car driving down Sunset Boulevard, your brain's heuristic is to automatically categorize the driver as rich. We use the visual cue of the car as a shortcut to evaluate their entire financial reality.
Which makes sense on a surface level.
Sure it does. But the reality of that environment is that a massive percentage of those visible signals are entirely mathematically false. Many of these individuals are dumping an irresponsibly large percentage of their monthly income simply to maintain the lease payment that signals success.
Let's talk about the ultimate embodiment of this, the story of Roger.
Roger is classic.
Roger is the cautionary tale of this entire framework. So Roger is an acquaintance of the author. Just a guy about their age driving a Porsche.
A very nice Porsche.
Right. And no one knows what Roger does for a living. No one knows his background, his education, his actual income. The only piece of data anyone has on Roger is the Porsche.
That's all they need.
In our society, that singular piece of data is entirely sufficient for people to draw sweeping, concrete conclusions about his level of success. They just assume he's crushing it.
And Roger was masterfully exploiting that signaling game. He was successfully broadcasting prosperity. Until the facade collapsed.
The twist.
The twist. One day, Roger stops driving the Porsche and starts showing up in an old, beat-up Honda. And it wasn't just a temporary rental while the Porsche was in the shop. The Honda became permanent.
And when confronted about it, Roger's response is the fascinating part.
It really is.
He is asked what happened to the Porsche, and he just casually replies that it was repossessed because he defaulted on the loan.
Defaulted. Just like that.
But the detail that truly stands out is his demeanor. There is no shame. There's no embarrassment. He delivers this news the same way you'd talk about a bad beat in a poker game.
Yeah.
He just shrugs it off as the next play in the game of appearances.
That lack of shame is the crucial psychological tell here. For a Roger, the car was never about actual financial stability. It was always just a costume.
A costume.
When the bank took the costume back, it didn't shatter his reality because his reality was already entirely leveraged. And this forces us to unpack a very sobering realization. The world is full of Rogers. Los Angeles is full of Rogers.
All of them.
When we see someone driving a $100,000 car, our brain tells us they have $100,000. But let's look at the undeniable empirical math.
Let's do it.
The singular factual data point we actually gain when we see someone in a $100,000 car is that they have $100,000 less in the bank than they did before they bought it.
Yes.
Or even more likely, it means they have $100,000 more in debt.
We only see the addition to their driveway. We are completely blind to the massive subtraction from their net worth.
Precisely. And this happens because human beings are highly visual creatures operating in a system where the true metrics of financial health are entirely invisible.
You can't see them.
You cannot see someone's brokerage account. You cannot see the stress of their credit card debt. You don't see the second mortgage they took out to fund the vacation they posted online.
Right.
Because all the actual data is hidden, we are forced to rely on visual consumption to gauge success. But the visual consumption is the exact mechanism destroying the wealth.
But isn't there an argument that faking it until you make it has some utility? I mean, we've all heard that phrase.
Oh, absolutely.
In certain industries, projecting success can attract clients or open doors. If Roger's Porsche got him into rooms he otherwise wouldn't have accessed, maybe it was a calculated risk.
It's a high-stakes gamble with terrible odds. Modern capitalism has absolutely built a cherished, highly profitable industry around helping people fake it until they make it.
A massive industry.
Entire sectors of the economy, from subprime auto lending to high-interest personal loans to those buy now, pay later schemes, they exist solely to provide the leverage necessary for people to project a level of wealth they do not possess.
They prey on it.
Though using debt to signal success is like drinking seawater when you're thirsty. It provides the immediate sensation of relief, but it accelerates your demise. The temporary social access you might gain is vastly outweighed by the compounding financial fragility you're building behind the scenes.
Which makes this incredibly dangerous for you, the listener, if you aren't actively defending your own mindset against it.
You have to protect yourself.
Think about the danger of relying on this limited, skewed data set. If you are basing your own financial benchmarks on the visible consumption of your peers, comparing what you drive to what they drive, what your kitchen looks like compared to theirs, you are playing a rigged game.
A completely rigged game.
You are looking at your own behind-the-scenes financial reality, knowing every messy detail, and comparing it to someone else's heavily curated, highly leveraged facade. You are letting an illusion dictate your reality.
That comparison is the silent killer of financial security. If you try to keep pace with a Roger, you're going to end up exactly like Roger, defaulting on the illusion. This requires us to fundamentally redefine the vocabulary we use. We have to define what true wealth actually is.
And the core definition provided in the text is wonderfully disruptive.
It really flips things around.
It states that wealth is the nice cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the watches not worn, the clothes foregone, the first-class upgrades declined.
It's all the things you didn't do.
Yes. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into stuff.
It completely flips the standard visual dictionary on its head. We have been conditioned from birth by media and society to believe that wealth equals consumption.
That buying things makes you wealthy.
Exactly. But the framework argues that wealth is exactly the opposite. It is the absence of consumption. It is the raw, unspent potential energy of money.
There is an anecdote here involving the singer Rihanna that perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of our societal conditioning.
Oh, this story is amazing.
It's almost comical. The text even says, you can laugh, and please do, but the underlying truth is deadly serious. The story goes that Rihanna nearly went bankrupt after a period of massive, unchecked spending, overspending on everything.
Right.
Naturally, she sues her financial advisor, blaming them for the losses.
As one does.
And the advisor's response, which is now legendary, is simply, was it really necessary to tell her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money?
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like something you'd tell a kindergartner.
It does.
It sounds almost condescending. But the painful reality is that, yes, people do need to be told this. And the semantic breakdown of how we talk about success proves it.
Let's look at the semantic breakdown, because when the average person says, I want to be a millionaire, what is the actual image flashing in their mind?
It's usually a montage of luxury.
It's not an image of a diversified index fund sitting quietly in an account. The imagery is mansions, it's yachts, expensive champagne.
Fast cars.
When people say they want to be a millionaire, what they almost universally mean is, I want to spend $1 million.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the irony is staggering. Spending $1 million is literally the exact opposite of being a millionaire.
The exact opposite.
If you possess $1 million and you spend it, you are no longer a millionaire. You are simply someone who owns a lot of expensive inventory, and you have fundamentally destroyed the wealth required to acquire it.
There's a quote from investor Bill Mann in the text that drives this home perfectly. He points out that there is no faster way to feel rich than to spend lots of money on really nice things.
The dopamine hit is immediate.
It is. But the way to be rich is to spend the money you have and to not spend the money you don't have.
Now, Mann's advice is solid baseline prudence. But the author goes a step further than Mann here.
Right.
The author argues that the only way to be wealthy is to not spend the money that you do have. It isn't just a strategy for accumulation. It is the fundamental definition of the state of being wealthy. Wealth is unspent money, period.
This brings us to a semantic distinction that I think is the most consequential part of this entire deep dive.
I agree completely.
We need to clearly separate two words that society uses interchangeably, but which actually represent entirely different universes of financial reality. Rich versus wealthy.
They are not the same thing.
This isn't just a matter of pedantry either. Failing to understand the consequential difference between these two concepts is the root cause of countless catastrophic money decisions. So let's break it down. What exactly does it mean to be rich?
Being rich is directly tied to current income. It is a measure of cash flow.
Okay.
And crucially, it is highly visible. The person driving the $100,000 car is almost certainly rich. Why? Because even if they finance that car with terrible debt, they still need a relatively high level of current monthly income to sustain that massive payment without immediately defaulting.
So they have money moving through their hands.
Exactly. The people living in sprawling mansions are rich. They have the cash flow to keep the lights on and pay the property taxes. Being rich is about outward display. It is the active, noisy demonstration of current earning power.
They want you to know.
Rich people often go out of their way to make sure you know they are rich.
Okay, so if rich is high current income and high visibility, what is wealth?
Wealth is hidden. Wealth is income that has not been spent. It is an option not yet taken.
An option not yet taken.
Yes. While being rich is about proving what you can afford to buy today, wealth is about retaining the capital to buy something tomorrow. The true value of wealth does not lie in signaling your status to strangers at a stoplight.
Right.
Its value lies in offering you options, offering you flexibility, and offering you the compounding growth required to exponentially increase your purchasing power over time.
There is a brilliantly relatable analogy used in the text to illustrate this gap between being rich and being wealthy, and it revolves around diet and exercise.
This one hits close to home.
Oh, it hits so close to home. The framework references data from Bill Bryson's book, The Body, specifically looking at how humans calculate caloric burn versus caloric intake.
We are terrible at this calculation.
We are so bad at it. The statistics from the study show that when people exercise, they vastly overestimate the number of calories they burned, often overestimating by a factor of 4.
4 times.
4 times. And then, because they feel a sense of accomplishment, they go and consume, on average, twice as many calories as they just burned off.
It's the classic post-workout reward.
Exactly. You suffer through a grueling spin class, and then you eat a massive decadent meal because you think, I earned this. But mathematically, you've just put yourself in a massive caloric surplus. You've undone the work.
This maps perfectly onto the behavioral economics of earning and spending money. In this analogy, the exercise, the hard work, the grueling hours is the equivalent of being rich. You do the work, you secure the high-paying job, you grind out the long hours, and you generate the high income. You are doing the heavy lifting. And because you put in the immense effort, the natural psychological response is moral licensing.
Moral licensing, like telling yourself you deserve it.
Exactly. You tell yourself, I worked hard, therefore I deserve a treat. I deserve the luxury car. I deserve the massive house. I deserve the Michelin star dinner.
So eating that big, decadent post-workout meal is exactly like spending your riches?
Yes.
You are immediately consuming the effort you just expended. You earned the money, and you instantly traded it for the dopamine hit of the reward.
So where does wealth fit into this analogy? Wealth is the equivalent of turning down that treat meal. Wealth is actually burning that calories.
That takes discipline.
It requires a tremendous amount of self-control. And let's be honest about human nature. That is incredibly painful. It means denying yourself the immediate, tangible reward for the hard work you just did in favor of an invisible future benefit.
I can hear the pushback from our listeners right now. Someone listening to this is definitely thinking, wait a minute. If I put in 80-hour weeks for a decade to build my income, shouldn't I be able to enjoy the fruits of my labor?
That's a very natural response.
If wealth is just hoarding invisible options, aren't we missing the point of being alive? What is the point of earning the money if you don't convert it into joy?
That is the ultimate existential question of personal finance. It's a completely valid friction point. But the distinction between rich and wealthy isn't about denying yourself all joy.
It's not about starvation.
No, it's about understanding the mechanics of security. Wealth creates a gap. It creates a space between what you could do, because you have the high income, and what you choose to do. The larger that gap, the greater your wealth.
The gap is where the wealth lives.
Precisely. If you earn $500,000 a year and you spend $500,000 a year, you have zero gap. You're incredibly rich, but you have no wealth.
None.
You are one bad quarter, one health crisis, or one industry disruption away from total ruin. You are effectively a high-income wage slave. Wealth is the restraint that builds the buffer. It's not about never eating the meal. It's about making sure your financial metabolism isn't relying entirely on your daily effort to survive.
It's the gap between the ego wanting to show off today and the rational mind choosing the freedom of tomorrow. Which brings us to the final massive roadblock.
The hardest part.
If the definition of wealth is mathematically this simple, just don't spend the money you have, why is building wealth so incredibly notoriously hard for the vast majority of people?
The text attributes this difficulty to what we can call the role model problem, because it is incredibly easy to find rich role models. We are surrounded by them every day.
Everywhere.
But it is exceedingly difficult to find wealthy role models. And the reason for this goes back directly to our definitions. Wealth is hidden by definition.
Even when wealthy people do buy things, which they do, what we are observing is their richness, not their wealth.
That's right.
If a genuinely wealthy individual buys a nice car or sends their kids to an elite school, that visible act of consumption is just their liquidated cash flow at work. What we don't see, what we can observe, is the vast majority of their financial reality.
The unseen savings.
We don't see the retirement accounts. We don't see the portfolios compounding over 30 years. We see the beautiful home they bought, but we don't see the reality that they could have easily afforded a home 3 times that size, but deliberately chose not to.
This raises an important question about how human beings actually learn financial literacy. We are mimetic creatures. We learn by imitation.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. We look at people who are successful in a particular domain, we observe their behaviors, and we copy them to achieve similar results. But the inherently hidden nature of true wealth breaks this learning model.
Because you can't copy what isn't there.
You cannot imitate what you cannot see. You cannot visually observe someone's restraint. You cannot copy the invisible decision to not buy a car. You cannot watch someone not upgrade to first class.
There is a perfect historical example of this in the text, the story of Ronald Read.
Such a great story.
Ronald Read became this massive, almost mythical financial role model for everyday investors. He was a janitor and a gas station attendant.
Modest income.
Very modest, but he amassed a multi-million-dollar fortune simply by quietly investing in blue-chip stocks and holding them for decades. He was lionized in the media as the ultimate proof that anyone can build wealth, but there is a massive catch to his status as a role model.
The catch is that he only became a financial role model after he died.
Right.
While he was alive, walking the earth and actively executing this brilliant financial strategy, he was nobody's role model. Why? Because every single penny of his true wealth was hidden. Even his closest friends and family had absolutely no idea he was wealthy.
He drove an old car, wore old clothes, and lived a completely modest life.
No one could copy him because no one knew what he was doing.
To bring this concept home, the framework provides a phenomenal thought experiment, an analogy about learning a craft, specifically writing.
This is a powerful analogy.
Imagine you're trying to learn how to be a great writer, but you are never allowed to read the works of the great authors. You can't read Hemingway, you can't read Toni Morrison, you can't read Shakespeare.
You'd be lost.
How would you know what good pacing looks like? Who would be your inspiration? Whose nuances and sentence structures would you study and copy?
It would make an incredibly difficult task, fundamentally impossible. You would just be guessing in the dark. And that is the exact handicap most people operate under when trying to build financial independence.
Wow.
It is extremely difficult to learn from what you cannot see. Because we cannot see the quiet restraint of the truly wealthy, we default to observing the loud, visible, debt-fueled consumption of the rich. We imitate the spending, thinking we are imitating the success.
And we fall right into the trap.
The lack of visible role models for restraint is a primary reason why so many people fundamentally fail to build lasting wealth. They are copying the wrong homework.
So, what does this all mean for you? Let's bring this right down to the ground level of your everyday life. It means that the world you walk through every single day is effectively an optical illusion.
A total illusion.
The streets, the restaurants, the office parking lots, they are filled with modest-looking, maybe even boring-looking people who are actually sitting on absolute mountains of invisible wealth.
The real wealth.
And conversely, the world is filled with people who look like absolute rock stars, driving the luxury SUVs, wearing the designer brands, posting the lavish vacations, who are actually living on the razor's edge of absolute insolvency.
One missed paycheck away from disaster.
Exactly. The imperative here is that you must keep this reality firmly in mind the next time you find yourself judging someone else's level of success. And more importantly, you must keep this in mind when you are setting your own financial goals. Do not let a Roger dictate your budget.
It requires a profound, conscious uncoupling of your self-worth from your visible possessions. You have to divorce your financial strategy from the visual cues of your environment.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, let's synthesize the two massive paradigm shifts we've extracted from these sources today. First, from the man in the car paradox. We must accept the hard, ego-bruising truth that the stuff you buy will not magically generate the respect and admiration you crave from other people.
They're just looking at the car.
People are simply too busy thinking about themselves, projecting their own desires onto your possessions to be genuinely impressed by you. If you want respect, you have to invest in the unpurchasable character traits: humility, kindness, empathy.
The real currency.
Second, from wealth is what you don't see, we have to completely redefine our target. True wealth isn't the flashy car or the heavily leveraged Instagram lifestyle. True wealth is the exact opposite. True wealth is the money you don't spend. It is the invisible safety net that grants you options, freedom, and flexibility.
It demands a complete rewiring of your instincts. In a society that is relentlessly obsessed with outward appearances, constant consumption, and immediate gratification, you have to actively train yourself to value the unseen over the seen.
It's hard work.
It is. You have to find your comfort and your confidence in the hidden numbers on a spreadsheet, rather than relying on the validation of strangers at a stoplight.
It's a massive shift in perspective. But as we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final, lingering thought. This is drawn directly from the closing lines of the source text, and it shifts the focus entirely toward your next logical step.
The next move.
It's a bit of a cliffhanger, and I want you to really chew on it. We've spent all this time establishing that wealth is simply what you don't spend. We've argued that withholding consumption is the path to wealth, but that leaves a massive, glaring question hovering in the air.
The very big question.
If wealth is what you don't spend, what good is it? Why hoard invisible options? Why deny yourself the post-workout meal forever? Well, consider this a cliffhanger for your own personal reflection. Let me convince you to save money. Take that question with you today, ponder the intrinsic value of unspent savings, and we'll see you next time.